when I was, okay, so for those who don't know, I used to do some coaching stuff way back in the day. And I used to help out and do free coaching for ELO Hell. They used to have a once a week pugs, and they would have like community coaches who like come in and look at people's stuff. And I remember looking at this Silver Zarya's gameplay, and I was like, holy shit, like your bubble usage is actually really good. Like, you know, like you actually have like a decent understanding of the game. Your mechanical skill, just you have a mechanical skill of a pebble. Like, if we could fix that, honestly, we'd be in a good spot. And I was talking about like ways he could help improve his aim or whatever. And then someone was like, just curious, what's your sensitivity, by the way? And I was like, oh yeah, that's a good point. And he was like, oh, my sensitivity is like 8. Or I think he said it was 10. And I was like, oh, that's not too bad, I guess. It's still high, but... Wait, what's your DPI? 1600? I was like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean it's sensitivity is 10 and your DPI is like 1600? He was like, yeah, he had an EDPI of like 38,000 or some shit. And I was like, my God, no wonder you can't aim. Holy fuck, what's wrong with you? Like, so we got him moved all the way down to like, I think it was like 8,000 or 9,000 EDPI, and we were trying to force it lower over time. And the guy went from silver to plat in like a week. Guy was silver for like 2 years and then hit plat in a week. I was like, that's crazy, bro. That's fucking wild. I've never seen some shit like that in my whole life. And then I couldn't play him anymore because it was like gold and below. And then boom, they were just gone. I was like, holy fuck, that's crazy. What's DPI? So, see this? Your sensitivity is your in-game. This is sensitivity. So sensitivity is a number in the game. DPI is how fast your mouse moves around the screen. See my mouse moving right now? Even if I jack this to 100, my mouse will move the same speed. Here's why. DPI is dots per inch, and your DPI is basically measuring how your mouse moves across the mouse pad. As you move your mouse, it picks up that there's movement happening. The sensitivity is the in-game sensitivity. So sensitivity on controller is you just change the sensitivity on the controller, and it's basically, you know, in-game how fast you spin, etc. What sensitivity on a computer does is the sensitivity in-game is multiplied by whatever DPI you use. So you use 400 DPI, you do 400 times, let's say the sensitivity of 2.25. That gives you your EDPI. EDPI is technically the thing that can be converted anywhere. EDPI is the number that no matter what, if you change your DPI on your mouse or your sensitivity in game, you can always have the exact sensitivity. Your DPI is strictly your mouse movement on the screen. It does not account for the sensitivity yet. Sensitivity is the in-game multiplier. It depends, it's different from game to game. So in Apex, 2.0 sensitivity does not feel the same as 2.0 sensitivity in Overwatch. They have different algorithms, different math. It's impossible to know from game to game without using some third-party service what your sensitivity should be. But with the use of EDPI, you can figure it out. What you do is you take this number, multiply it by your DPI, that gives you your EDPI. I use 1600. So my sensitivity is 2.25. Multiply that by 1600. My EDPI is 3600. Let's say I wanted to change my DPI to 800. What I would do is I'd take this number, I'd divide it by 800, and boom, 4.5 sensitivity would be the same thing as 800 DPI and 4 sensitivity. So this number can change at any time. As long as you change the other end in the game, the sensitivity will stay the same. Or vice versa. You can change the sensitivity in the game and change your DPI, and you can keep the exact same sensitivity in game. Where do you change DPI? It depends. So for me, I have a G Pro wireless. So this is my G Pro X Superlight. And in my settings, I have profiles that you can set. And the profile I have set makes it so that my sensitivity, or my DPI, sorry, is 1600. Depending on what your mouse is, if you have a Razer, Corsair, whatever you have to have the software, unless there's a button on it. Some mice have buttons, like manual buttons that you can press to change it. You change it using the software provided with the mouse, and you can set almost any DPI. I would recommend using 800, 1600, 3200 numbers, or 400. I wouldn't stray away. I wouldn't do like 920, etc., because those numbers are much more difficult to work with. But yeah. So know what you're stepping in, but at 2.25 on Apex feels different than Overwatch. Would you still come up with the same DPI, but a different sense? True. True. That's why you have things like this that are called mouse sensitivity converters. And you can convert from to Apex Legends, DPI of 1600, DPI of 1600, in-game sensitivity of 2.25. Boom. So converted sensitivity at this rate is 0.675. Now, if you're playing Apex, that's an extremely low sensitivity to be playing Apex on. So it might not be a good sensitivity for Apex, but it gives you a baseline. eDPI is your way to figure out what your sensitivity is in a certain game with a certain number. And you can always have that number and convert it elsewhere. However, though, not every game plays the same, and sometimes what your eDPI is in one game won't work for another game. Why do you want higher sense in Apex? I wouldn't say you want higher, but Apex feels different, and it also is based off your FOV. So if you play a really small FOV, like really short, like console-esque FOV, it might work out for you. However, though, like on a higher FOV, it won't be enough, you know, like, or vice versa. It might actually be the other way. I might have misspoke on that, but point being, when you change games, it's a good baseline to have, but you find your sensitivity over time. You adjust it, you try to go up, go down, try something new. Like Sureforge, I think, changes his sensitivity like daily, so he doesn't have one sensitivity. Not everyone can do that or should do that. It depends on the person, but regardless, so it's a good baseline to start with. Yeah, well, honestly, the polling gains thing, listen, man, if we're having the conversation about sensitivity and eDPI, I think polling rates might be a little advanced. Screen resolution will also affect how your sensitivity feels. True. Do you have high precision mouse input enabled? Yes, you absolutely should. Fuck are polling gains? So you know how your mouse moves across the mouse pad? Higher DPI means it's more accurate with how it's gauging you moving across the mouse pad. It's polling faster. So 800 DPI, it's trying to take the picture 800 times. But at 1600 DPI, it's trying to take the picture 1600 times. To try to put this as basic as possible. And so, kind of like a higher refresh monitor, it's picking up more through the 1600 than the 800. It's updating faster. So you know how like a 60 FPS monitor works versus a 144 hertz monitor? The 144 hertz, you can see much more. It looks more clear. There's less like blur. It's sort of the same thing with the mouse, but after 1600, like 3200 also does that from 1600, but it's a minimal gain, if that makes sense. If you have let's say you have 3600 eDPI, or sorry, 3600 DPI, when you're on your computer, you move your mouse like a millimeter, it's gonna go zoom like on the desktop. Like it's gonna be impossible to use. So how the fuck do you know these things? I've just picked it up from people over time. Like there's people way smarter than me have taught me about this type of stuff. So is higher DPI better? The optimal DPI, at least minimum, is like 1600. I used to play, so for those who don't know, I used to play 800 and I changed to 1600, and that was around the time I started playing Apex again, the second time. And I don't know if you noticed, but my aim got really good when I started playing Apex, and I don't want to be that guy. When I started using 1600 and the same sensitivity, I all of a sudden felt like I could hit way more shots, and I was like, fuck, this thing might have been right. You know, I was like, oh, dude.